Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is April 11th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see we've got some clouds here across the region. We're going to be dealing with some troughing here for the next couple of days, but we're likely to start warming up and drying out as we head through next week. But the extended forecast shows some interesting systems as well. So we'll dive into all those details as we go through the video here this morning. Some showers across some of western Washington here, Washington coast, a little bit of convergent zone activity there up north of Seattle, and you can see kind of the next band of clouds out here. Not an overly strong system, but we're going to be dealing with this troughing, as I mentioned here, for the next couple of days. So let's dive into some of those details here. First things first, lightning strikes last 24 hours. Southwest Washington got a strike or two, some of southwest BC and the interior areas as well. Not overall too widespread though. And now taking a look here, this is not a political statement. This is something I have to draw attention to because the staffing is now affecting our upper air observations, which will in turn make our data less reliable, and it will affect weather models. We are going backwards here, folks. We are not funding these things properly, and it needs to be said. And this goes for places downstream of the Pacific Northwest, like Kotzebue as well. We really rely on these upper air observations. It gives us an extremely detailed look at the upper levels of our atmosphere. And now, because of staffing, we are reducing the amount of data we are going to be putting into our weather models. This is very bad news. And here's the one again for Kotzebue. But yeah, that's downstream of the Pacific Northwest. When we have big storms or Arctic outbreaks in the future, we will get, not as quite a comprehensive view of the upper levels of the atmosphere. So back to the forecast here. National Weather Service Spokane. Colder nights this weekend, or probably Sunday, going to be the chilliest. I'll show you the temperatures here in a moment, but there's some frosty conditions out there at times as well. And if we take a look here, spring weather spotter trading, I'll put this in my Patreon page, which will be in the link down below, but you can sign up and do one of these classes here. You'll learn a lot. They're free and they're open to all. And you can see on the Patreon page, you just click that link there, and it talks about what will be going on, 1 to 1.5 hours, generally speaking. Now, Seattle, Tacoma, talking about some of the frosty conditions, mainly southwest Washington. There you can see Portland National Weather Service. The blue here is that frost advisory. In some places getting a bit chilly here, eastern Washington and eastern Oregon. Now, taking a look at the overnight lows, this is Saturday, tomorrow morning. You see some areas dropping down a little bit here, but, overall speaking, not too bad. But Sunday morning, probably the coldest. You see some areas dropping down near freezing here, and you could get some frosty conditions here for western Oregon, western Washington here as well. Nothing too crazy, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Start to warm things up a little bit there Monday and Tuesday as we start to build that ridge and get some offshore flow and start to bring some nice weather here into the region. So we'll dive into those details in a moment. Now, looking at daylight hours here, this is for Seattle. What are we at? We're at April here, so let's back up and we'll go to April 11th. Look, the sun is setting at 7:54. In a few days, it'll be setting after 8 o'clock in Seattle, and we're gaining over 3 minutes of daylight each and every day. By the time we get towards the end of April, we'll be having those sunsets occur at about 8:20 p.m. Now, looking at the European model here, so we've got this trough. This is the one hanging out here as we go on in through Saturday. It's going to bring some blustery westerly winds here across the region, but then you see the ridge building as we go on in through Sunday. Monday, the system too far away to really do too much, and you kind of see the ridge hanging out. We're going to dry out pretty dramatically here for much of the region as we go through this upcoming week. There is kind of this backdoor cold front will be impacting portions a little bit further east. I'll show you that here in a moment, but look at this glorious week coming up with the ridge of high pressure. Gulf of Alaska, southern Alaska trough is far enough away that we'll be getting some nice conditions. Now, taking a look here, looking at the precipitation amounts as we go through the day today into tomorrow morning. Still some of that snow flying for some of the higher terrain. A few inches of snowfall possible. The showers wrapping up, though, by the time we go into Saturday. And then often through Sunday, still getting some of that snow across Montana. But then we start to dry out here. You can see that weak system up across western BC, not getting down towards southwest BC or Washington. Then we scroll on into the upcoming week, and you can see it's going to be dry and some nice weather here across the area. But also there is the backdoor cold front that I was going to mention as well. So if we go through the day Wednesday, you kind of see that sliding down out of the north, mainly for Montana. Not showing much here for Idaho or places like Spokane or eastern Oregon, Boise, for example. Not really get included in that as of this time frame. We'll continue to watch that system as well. Now, total precipitation in inches. Here's the high resolution rapid refresh. We scroll through the day today. You can see a lot of Seattle not getting too much in the way of rainfall, maybe a few hundredths of an inch of rain, lesser amounts for western Oregon. But also, if I back this up, you see this area here across some of the Blue Mountains, higher terrain in northeast Oregon, on into the higher terrain of Idaho. This could have some lightning potential as we go through the afternoon and evening hours. So right there is the place to watch. But you can see, kind of modest amounts of precipitation here. We scroll through 48 hours and then we dry out by the time we go towards Sunday morning. So one more round of rainfall here for western Washington. If we look at that lightning flash density potential, put that into motion. And again, here we go on in through this afternoon. Well, this evening, I should say. It's about 7 p.m. right there, 8, 9, 10. You can see that lightning activity pushing across some of eastern Oregon right there. So if we take a look at the winds as well, with this troughing around, we're going to have some of these gusty winds for the east slopes of the Cascades. A little bit of a breezy wind coming down through the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and then we go on in towards Friday night, and you can see it pick back up again here Friday night. It's about 9 p.m. or so. Westerly surge there, and again, some gusty west winds there off the east slopes of the Cascades of Oregon and Washington. And then watch what happens as we scroll through the day Saturday, a fairly blustery day, but then we start to reverse that. Look at the wind shift occurs across the Cascades by the time we get towards Saturday morning, and you can see some of these offshore winds developing as we go through the day Sunday as we start to really dry things out here across the area. If we take a look at the upper levels of the atmosphere, again, there's the trough and the cooler air, the blues and the greens. This is temperature anomaly at 5,000 feet. So you can kind of see the chillier air aloft associated with that. But then when we turn things offshore and the ridge comes over, we get the sinking air. We start to really warm things up. And you can kind of see that. You're going to keep things above normal here as we go on in towards next week. And then you can kind of see the backdoor cold front dropping down on the eastern periphery of this ridge of high pressure across the area. Now, if we take a look at total snow-Kachara ratio in inches as we go through Saturday, see maybe an inch or two for Snoqualmie, a little bit more for Stevens Pass there, and nothing too crazy. But just kind of keep that in the back of your mind if you're traveling on Saturday morning through the day Saturday. You might run into a little bit of snowy conditions there across the higher terrain of the Cascades. But then you can see as we scroll through the rest of the week, we don't have much in the way of snowfall coming across the area. And this is the wider view of things here. So let's scroll off in towards the early portion or mid portion of next week and kind of see the little bump in the snowfall there. That would be that backdoor cold front there across some of the Rocky Mountains. Now, wider view of things here. Let's look off into the extended forecast a bit. Artificial intelligence, last night's run. There's Washington State. There's Alaska. You can see California down here in the East Coast over there. So put this into motion. There goes our troughing this weekend that we'll be dealing with, but then the ridge takes over and kind of holds steady as we go through this upcoming week. There's that backdoor cold front there as we go through the day Wednesday, but you see the ridge firmly in position here across a lot of the west coast of North America, or I should say the northwest portion, because you still got the troughing hanging out here down across California. And then as we scroll into the following weekend, you can kind of see that chilly upper level low come down on the eastern periphery of this ridge of high pressure there. So that could bring some unsettled weather as we go on in through the following weekend, and then maybe on through the following week we get additional rounds and some chillier conditions dropping down out of the northwest. It is springtime though, so you probably have days where it's kind of there's some precipitation going on and then maybe a nice day in between or whatnot. But yeah, this week looks largely dry. As you can see, that ridge is going to be dominating our weather. Then we scroll in towards the following weekend and you can see the troughing probably returning at some point then. Now looking at artificial intelligence, 6-hour precipitation type. So we're going to scroll on through this week, as I said, dry conditions. There's the backdoor cold front, maybe clipping portions of the Idaho Panhandle there in the Rocky Mountains. And then we go towards the next weekend and you kind of see how things get unsettled again. Then maybe on into the following week and kind of see the showers and some precipitation starts to return to the area. Shouldn't be too much of a surprise during the spring months. If we go out all the way 15 days, you can see Seattle about 0.6 of an inch, higher amounts across the Cascades, of course. But this isn't a lot of precipitation here over the next 15 days. And you can really see that reflected in the 15-day precipitation anomaly. And really, this is driven by this upcoming week where we're going to be quite dry here across the area. If we take a look at daily 2-meter maximum temperatures, this is for today, Friday, April 11th. And then we go on in through Saturday here, trough still around, but by the time we get towards Sunday, we start to warm things up. Look at maybe some upper 60s for some of western Oregon. You start getting back into the 60s maybe for western Washington. Then look at Monday, nice, glorious day. Mid 70s maybe for Portland, anybody? And you can see maybe some mid and upper 60s there for the Puget Sound as well as we go through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Look at that, starting to punch up towards 70 degrees for Seattle. Widespread 70s here across eastern Oregon, Washington, all the way up into southwest BC. Look at Bellingham, 63. And then Friday, another nice day again, as we see if maybe there's another system lurking as we go on in towards next week. And you can see Saturday cooling back down as you go through the weekend. Of course, just in time for the weekend, right? So, yeah, we'll see what's to come after that. But here's the 6 to 10 day. Continues to be above average across a lot of the west, above as we go through April 20th. And then kind of the near normal starts to return there. Some troughing is probably going to be knocking on our door, and kind of a mixed bag there as far as precipitation is concerned as well. But anyway, that's all I got for you today. I hope you guys are enjoying the channel. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.